Founded 6 decades ago, Custom Building Products is the industry leader in flooring preparation and tile and stone installation systems. We're the preferred partner of leading contractors, architects, and developers throughout North America. At Custom, your success is our success. Our goal is simple: exceeding the expectations of construction professionals every day. Our commitment to practical solutions and technical expertise helps you deliver installations that are as durable as they are beautiful. Custom's rich tradition of innovation has led to breakthroughs like the first polymer-modified grout, pioneering lightweight mortars and underlayments, the original liquid waterproofing membrane, and a revolutionary single-component grout. Trusted Custom brands offer complete installation systems that ensure high performance from a single source.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to everybody for attending Custom's presentation on Grout. Your choice really matters. Background: I've been with Custom for 23 years. I was the technical rep for about 10 years, so I was out actually on the jobs, working with contractors, working with the product on job sites, and then transitioned over to the architectural department just about 13 years ago. Covered Northern California for most of my career and then relocated to Southern California 2 years ago, but I still cover the Northern California territory as well. So lucky enough to have 13 states. So most of you, I will be your rep. Anybody that needs your local rep, reach out to me. I'll be glad to put you in touch with your local architectural rep as well. So that's a little introduction for me. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off and we will start the presentation so you don't have to look at me. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to start with Grout. Your choice really matters. This is an AIA best practice, so we do have credits available, and I think you've all put in your information, and we'll be able to get you certificates for anybody that needs it after the presentation. So learning objectives today, we are going to talk about all categories of grouting materials, so we can kind of tell the differences between which ones to specify, why to use it, where to use it, how to use it for tile and stone assemblies. We are going to compare the performances of each of those grout types to see why we need to possibly choose one over the other. And you will learn what to expect from the different grout classifications. And then we're going to provide recommendations for specifying that proper grout. So that's what I will be as your contact person. It's great to have my information. I will have it again at the end of the meeting. So you can reach out to me. I will work out of my home office to make sure I can update your specs and also help navigate you through any specifications. So right now, every tile installer knows that a good grout inspection or a good grout installation, hold on one second, technical difficulty there, can make a mediocre installation pass, but a bad grout job will make it fail every time, obviously, because we're dealing with aesthetics here. So we're going to plan for success. Now, there's different factors to consider when we're picking grout other than just color. We want to choose the grout that's based on the service demands. Installation conditions, possible site scenarios. So that's where you're going to reach out to me and the installer to talk about where are we putting it? What are we going to be putting on it? What about the maintenance? We want to take preventative measures. We want to discuss sealers and assure suitability for cleaning products, which are one of the most important parts of the tile installation for longevity, is making sure that grout sealer stays on and we're not using too harsh cleaners. The grout's great expectations. What do we expect out of grout? We want color match, we want color uniformity, hardness, abrasion resistance, flexural strength, tensile strength. Some of the others, we obviously want stain resistance, certain applications, chemical resistance, heat resistance, and expected to have similar performance to tile or stone. And we want that all regardless of the type of grout, the application, site conditions, the substrate, the installer, and the maintenance program. Okay. The specifier shall determine materials appropriate for specific project conditions, considering by way of example, but not in limitation to the type of use, foot traffic, what other type of traffic we're putting on it. Is it a dealership where we have car traffic? Expected contaminants that might get on there, kitchens, breweries, expected maintenance, how often. We got malls. If you look to your right there, we have the Bonaventure Hotel. That's going to have a lot of foot traffic, a lot of bellman cart traffic, luggage traffic, expected wear. We want to make sure it lasts for a long time through the cycle until they decide to redo it. So we want to follow manufacturers' guidelines and recommendations, and that's what I am here for. What do we really choose it for is aesthetics. That's what your end user is choosing it for. They want to see what that grout is going to do to that tile installation. So what are the effects of the color that they're choosing? You have a dark contrast option. That's if you want to really highlight the tile. And you'll notice the grout really stands out on this one. It will be good for, I like it for horizontal. I like it for heavy foot traffic because it's going to wear better with stains and coloring issues and dirt and grime. You have the light contrast, which will highlight the grout in a different color. That one, good for verticals. I know a lot of people like to put that on the horizontal, but I'll tell you, after about 6 months, it's going to look like the one on the left, no matter how good your sealer is. So it's nicer to have that dark contrast. The dark blend, we could see that you're trying to pull out colors out of the tile, some of the darker colors that are in that tile. And then the light blend, you're picking out some of the lighter colors in that tile to highlight the tile color. But what's it really chosen for our aspect on the manufacturer side? Functionality. So the purpose of the grout really is to support and protect the edges of the tile by filling the space between them. We just add color to give us a reason why we're putting it in there and make it look good, which is why everybody now is starting to want smaller and smaller grout joints and pretty much wanting them to disappear. Tiles are getting larger and larger, joints are getting smaller and smaller. So the grout standards, what are the current grout standards? So we go off of ANSI, the American National Standards Institute. We start with ANSI A118.6, which is your standard cement grout. That's been around since the beginning. That is your, we'll go back 1 second, that is going to be your Portland cement, sand, water retentive chemical, and polymers. You moved up several years later into the 118.7, which is a high performance cement-based grout. We're going to talk about why on these as we go through in the future here. ANSI A118.8, which is a modified epoxy emulsion. You got ANSI A118.3, which is your chemical resistant water cleanable epoxy grout, which is your most popular epoxy grout. Your A118.5 chemical resistant furan grout. And then new, your ANSI A118.19 organic premix grout, which manufacturers like us and competitors are glad to finally have that ANSI specification because this has been in the works with premix grouts for over a decade. And we finally now have a classification to be able to specify them directly instead of saying they're kind of like a 118.7 and possibly like a 118.3. Now we have an actual designation. So let's get into what is the ANSI 118.6, the standard cement grout since the beginning of time in the tile world. It is a mixture of Portland cement, sand, pigments, and all you do is add water. We put in dry redispersible polymers. That is going to help with the density, the strength of the grout. And then we add water retention additives and other fillers to help kind of keep the moisture in a little bit longer so that it doesn't just hydrate quickly out of the grout joint and doesn't give the cement particles time to actually cure to their full hardness. And we want to make sure it doesn't weaken the grout. So back in the day when we came out with this tile or with this grout, most of the tiles out were ceramic. So from the 50s through the 90s, we used the assisted Portland cement in the hydration. It assisted the Portland hydration cement in the hydration process. That was why there were much less issues with color and efflorescence potentials. You'll hear a lot about efflorescence from me. When I was a technical rep, I'll tell you about 90% of my calls were efflorescence. It wasn't waterproofing. It wasn't tile falling off a wall. It wasn't cracked tile. It was efflorescence. It was the grout that was put in is turning white or changing a charcoal grout to a DeLorean gray color grout. So we had to go out there and find out exactly what was going on. So, and with the larger grout joints, with the cement grouts, it did see a direct point loading and abrasion exposure. So as it started getting larger, it was susceptible to point load problems. And the primary performance focus was on water absorption and compressive values. So this is a little easier way to explain it. When you look at the top, you'll see it's a porous tile. So those were the ceramic tiles from the 50s through the 90s. You'll notice that when it's set into a bonding mortar, or what we would call a thin set bed, the moisture from the grout could hydrate downwards, upwards, and to the side. So it had a lot of chance for that moisture to hydrate evenly, so that the grout stood a better chance of not only hardening to the way it was supposed to, but also retaining the color, which is what was very important to the end user and to us. Now you notice at the bottom, you'll see the non-porous tile. So as the porcelain tiles started coming into the market, they're not absorbative on the sides. So the moisture couldn't release left or right. It could only go down into the thin set bed and up. So now you're reducing that absorption rate, and that water was being trapped in that grout joint for longer than it needed to be. What happens with that, with Portland cement, is that the longer that the moisture stays in the grout joint, the Portland cement creates what's called Portlandite, which is salts or minerals, and they end up floating to the top of the grout joint, and that's called efflorescence. Now you have a concrete substrate that you're going over with a mortar and no membrane. Now you have not only a good opportunity, though, for it to, so let's say you got a ceramic tile, you got upwards, sideways, and down for your hydration process, nice and even. But now you're introducing moisture from the bottom. So that was another issue that the moisture could get up through. I looked at a couple jobs where the efflorescence was so thick, you could break it off in chunks on the top of the tile. There's not enough grout in that grout joint to put out that much Portlandite or efflorescence. So it was moisture coming from the concrete substrate that was causing it. So let's put down a moisture barrier or a membrane. All right, we can keep that moisture from the concrete substrate. And when it was a porous tile like ceramic, boom, left, right, up, down, even hydration, not a problem with ceramic tile. The problem was that we started getting into the porcelain tiles. So what were the challenges we had today of our Portland cement grout? Well, you got modeling, which is inconsistent color, or what we would call shading as well. If the grout dries faster or slower, it can dry darker or lighter. So just so you know out there, if grout dries too quickly, it's going to dry darker. And if grout takes too long to dry, it will appear lighter. Sometimes that can happen, as you'll see on the left picture there. It can happen within the same field, and it all depends, especially if you're going from floor to wall where heat rises, and you're going to have that grout drying a lot quicker as you go up the wall as you are on the floor. If you look at the middle one, in case nobody's ever seen efflorescence, which probably anybody that's looked at a cinder block wall has seen white salt minerals coming down. Same thing here on grout. You'll look at that and you'll see that that white film is on top there. The easiest way to tell the difference, I'll let everybody here know, is a quick inspection is if you just get it wet and it dissolves to where the grout joint looks uniform in color, that's going to be efflorescence. If you get it wet and it stays inconsistent throughout the wet grout joint, that's probably going to be a shading issue or a modeling issue. Now, when it dries, the efflorescence will come back. All we did was dissolve it to the naked eye to be able to see it. You'll actually need to use a product to release it. So also it stains. Any kind of cement-based grout is susceptible to staining. It is a porous product. So it does require a sealer and sealer maintenance. easy to say that things require a sealer and say, okay, we'll put a sealer in the specification, they'll seal it, we're good to go. But what type of sealer are you using? What type of maintenance are you using? You know, again, earlier I said that sealer could be washed off in 6 to 8 months, depending on the cleaner that's being used. So it's very important to look into that maintenance program. And I know with the architects and designers, we don't always know the maintenance. We don't know what that routine's going to be. So what do we have? We have a standard cement grout. They're the most common type and have been around the longest. They come in a sanded version, so you had the 1/8 inch to a 1/2 inch grout joint possibility. If you had a smaller grout joint of a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 inch, we have non-sanded available. So what did that equal to the customer? Low cost, but it also got you low customer satisfaction because of the maintenance, because of the sealer, and because of the possible coloration issues while it was hydrating, again, because of the porcelain tile. We moved up. When I first started with custom, they were starting to come out with the 118.7s. And once I got the contractors to use them, and we started getting contractors to use these more for the getting them up on the price, the callbacks just dropped dramatically. So why? It's because we have a mixture of calcium aluminate cement now, sand, pigments. You're just going to add water because it also has the dry redispersible polymers, just like the 118.6. And also the water retention additives and other fillers to maintain that moisture at an even rate. So the calcium aluminum cement is the replacement for the Portland cement. It will dry to a denser consistency. I wouldn't call it a rapid set, but it does fire a little faster to get to that density to keep that moisture from kind of creating any kind of issues with color while it's curing. So when you look at the ANSI for the technical table, the tensile strength on that, when you are looking at that versus the standard, and I have one thing here is trying to get rid of that screen, is you're going to have 28 days, 500 PSI minimum, and you're going to have flexural strength after 28 days. And the reason why we do 28 days, because that is a full cure for a cement-based product, whether it's concrete out in front of your house, whether that's thin set for setting the tile, whether that's grout, anything that is cement-based, 28 days is a full cure. So you're going to have 1,000 PSI minimum on that. So what we get with the calcium aluminum cement. So porcelain tile started coming out in mid to late 80s. There's low to no absorption. So it's a 0.05% or less. So that created major issues for Portland cement grouts. The longer water saturation, because of the no absorption on the side, what we discussed, the longer the water saturation was in there, changes in the color conditions, and it affected the color consistency. So now you slide in craftsmanship and booms in construction. It added to the challenge of the Portland cement usage. The calcium aluminate cement replacement, it filled that gap as a possible replacement. Like I said, I loved it. Once I would give to contractors Prism, say, can you use this on a job? They would come back and they have, this had no problem. So it just makes it a lot easier for everybody. So the high performance grouts, what are the challenges though? It does require mixing. So it all depends on who's mixing it and the process of doing so. It can stain over time. It is, again, remember, a porous material. Even though it cures at a denser consistency than a Portland cement, it still has the propensity to stain because it is a cement product. So we would require a sealer or recommend a sealer. And again, now you're back to that sealer maintenance program to make sure the sealer lasts. And any kind of cement grouts are affected by maintenance, chemicals, and movement. So what do we get from it? It was introduced in the late 90s, early 2000s. It replaces the Portland cement with calcium aluminate. So at the time, it was a bump up. So you went from a good grout to a better grout. It was faster setting, so it did control the color better by internal heat of hydration. I mean, this stuff actually heats up. The contractors will tell you in the bucket, it actually will get hot. It is denser, so it has a lower absorptions with higher strength. So what do we get? We get a higher cost plus better to mediocre customer satisfaction. The reason why we say mediocre customer satisfaction is because we're still have a porous material. It still requires a sealer. It still requires a maintenance program, but you are getting better because you do not have the color issues, and it is a stronger grout in the grout joint. And I'll just go back one real quick on that, because just to finish off, it also can go from a 1/16 of an inch to a half inch. So that's why we now did not need a sanded and non-sanded, because instead of just pure sand as the aggregate, they have recycled ceramic materials in there, so that you can go from a 1/16 to a half inch with one grout. So your color consistency from floors to walls, where you have smaller joints to larger joints, actually is better as well. So now the one epoxy that we moved to is the 118.3. This is the most popular. It is a chemical resistant, water cleanable tile setting and grouting epoxy. It is a mixture of epoxy resins, base paste, and then there is a catalyst. So most of the products out there, it's an A-B situation. So the A will be the hardener with the color. It is mixed with part B, which is the resin, and there you have your material. And it also has pigments in there for obviously for the color, and some colored aggregates. So when we get compressive strength on that, you're going to get up to 3,500 PSI, and with tensile strength, you still have above 1,000 PSI with the epoxy grout. So now let's get into why and where we're going to use these, because now epoxies lately, when I talk to a lot of designers and architects out there, because of the color issues with cement-based grouts, especially for anybody out there that's doing residential, I noticed that a lot of people are saying, I don't want the color issues, I don't want to use a sealer, I don't want the maintenance program. So they've gone full on into the epoxy grouts. And which is fine. Epoxy grouts, as we talk about, it's a great grout, and you don't need to seal it. But it does come with high cost on the product, and it comes with high labor as well. So I kind of want to talk about where we want to use it, because it does have a high chemical resistance. The vertical sag is fantastic, so it will not come back out of the joints when you're doing vertical installation. Water cleanability is different than cement, though. Generally used in commercial kitchens. So when you guys talk to me about it, I'm going to ask you, why are you putting an epoxy in? And we're talking about, commercial applications, industrial applications. It has grown in use in other areas, and that's kind of what we were talking about. Is they want that bulletproof grout, and it's fine to do so, but sometimes it's overkill, and what the overkill ends up being is cost and labor. Some of the challenges that do come with epoxy. It is an epoxy sensitivity potential. So there are a lot of installers out there, people that are allergic to some of the resins that are in epoxy grouts. So they can be affected by the installation. Installation is difficult. Epoxy, once you put it together, the part A, the part B, it's a chemical reaction. So it's going to go no matter what. You can put the lid back on the bucket, and that thing will harden up and become a boat anchor if you don't get it out onto the floor. So you can get behind it really quickly on your installation. So what will happen is, the reason why the installation costs go up is that installers will start using a team. So you'll have a person spreading the grout, and then a person following up to clean the grout to make sure that it doesn't get left behind, because it will leave a slight, and I don't know how to, it's not quite a greasy residue, but epoxy residue, it almost, when you walk on a floor with epoxy residue, it almost is a sticky but slippery almost at the same time. You'll actually leave footprints in there if you don't get it off all the way. So you want to make sure that when they're cleaning the haze off, fresh towels are being used, fresh sponges are being used. Because when you're using that sponge to clean the haze off, that epoxy will gum up those sponges quickly. So you want to make sure they're always switching out sponges and towels, and making sure that we can get that haze off as much as possible without having to use any product afterwards. And here's the other thing: if there's ever any haze out there, for any installers that are on this presentation as well, don't wait like some have 30 days to call us. to ask us how to clean it off. It is, emergency situation. If there's any haze, call us right away. We'll recommend the right products to get out there and try to get it off as soon as possible. So what do we get? We get stronger than cement grout, highest chemical resistance, very good stain resistance, more difficult to install though and clean than other grouts. So what it equals is you do have the highest product and labor cost, but you also have the highest customer satisfaction. Because really, what is the customer looking at the end of the day? Does it look like the color that I sat down with my designer and picked? Yes, it does. I'm happy. Is it cracking? Is it strong? Yes. Okay, great. But it comes at, you got the highest product, highest labor cost to get there. So all the manufacturers decided to get together and say, well, you got a higher cost product, which gives you the best customer satisfaction. You got the best performance, but if not, you have the other options, which are lower cost, lower performance, and bad to mediocre customer satisfaction. Well, there's got to be something in the middle we can do. There is a gap to fill. And so that's where we came out with the ANSI A118.19, which is the organic premix grouts for tile installations. So it's new to the TCNA, it's new to ANSI, and it's new to being introduced, but it has been around, like I said, for over a decade. We've just been fine tuning it. So it's professional grade. Every manufacturer has a different base. So there's urethane, there's acrylic, or there's a hybrid base chemistries on there. It does have pigmentation of base or color aggregates to make sure we get the right color. There are finely graded aggregates so that it is a smoother consistency and can go from that 1/16 of an inch to ½ inch, so that we do not have to use different types of sandids or non-sandids, and antimicrobials. Now this, it's funny that they talk about this. For the time it took NASA's Voyager 2, traveling over 35,000 miles per hour to reach Neptune, and that's over 3 billion miles from Earth. It took them that long to give us a new ANSI, American National Standards designation for premixed grouts. So you can fly to Neptune before we can get ANSI to give us a designation, but we got there. We got there. Like I said, it's been more than 12 years of effort from the MMSA and its subcommittee to develop a vast range of testing cycles so that they could qualify it and give us that designation. Now, it's been designated since February of 2024, so I know we're on the call in 2025, but these products have been out with that designation since February of 2024. So for the organic premixed grouts, with over 12 years in the development, we had to get a strong compressive strength. We wanted excellent water resistance, so that it could be used in intermittent moisture areas such as showers. We wanted strong abrasion resistance, so it could be used in any type of commercial, not any type, but certain types of commercial applications with foot traffic, rolling carts, stuff like that. We wanted chemical resistance, water cleanability, and we wanted resistance to mold. Very important for the resistance to mold. So the testing that we did, so for compressive indentation, not compressive strength. So cement epoxy grouts, it's a different test. They have a force and fracture test. So as you can see on the right, they have two cylinders that are pushing down, creating compressive strength until the grouts crack, and then it gives them a reading of how many PSI it took to crack that. The premixed grouts are similar to a hard rubber. So they compress actually and rebound under a force. So I don't want to say that they're bendable or anything, but they do compress and come back. So it went through several iterations with the test. They also do a 7 days water exposure test. So they do the extended water exposure. That was adopted to address concerns for wet shower floors and exterior applications to make sure we can put it in both interior, exterior, and in, like we talked about, intermittent moisture areas. You also did the abrasion test. So that's the Tabor wheel on the right. Now, the typical method, it doesn't function with the premixed grouts because of the gumming of the abrasive wheels. Because remember, it it is a compressible material, not a hard material like a cement or an epoxy. So they actually had to use a falling sand method so that to supply fresh abrasive material for the duration of the test. And then the water cleanability, there was a broad range for that testing. So the committee agreement required grout haze removal at the longest stated time by the manufacturer permits the category to advance. Currently manufacturers, so there's many of us out there, and they state anywhere between 5 minutes max to 40 minutes max to be able to clean up the grout haze. Now what you're getting here, you get a hardness after the 28 days. So we still rate it to that 28-day cycle because we do compare it with our epoxies and our cement-based grouts. We keep everything within that 28 days to keep it consistent on our testing. The requirement was to get over 1,000 PSI. We got that with the second generation premix because by now we are on the second generation. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then everything else, it passed. We'll talk about some of these tests. Now, it was introduced in 2012. Now, there is no cement or epoxy resin. I usually don't get a lot of questions about it being cement, but I do get questions from installers and architects out there and some of the salespeople that are selling it for us through the distributors that some people believe it's an epoxy. There is no epoxy in a pre-mixed. Remember, we talked about epoxy as a two-part application, so it needs a hardener and a resin. So if you actually had a pre-mixed epoxy, you would just have a boat anchor because the chemicals would be set off immediately. So it does have a different base to it, but there isn't any epoxy or cement in there. We wanted to keep the cement out because we found the common denominator with color issues and efflorescence was the cement. So let's just take it out. Let's just make one with no cement in it at all. So now there's no efflorescence possible. So we can actually guarantee against efflorescence and color consistency. Okay, the other one that everybody loves, especially the end user. I love this. No sealer required. Now, it kind of hurts my feelings a little bit because we sell sealers. So I do like sealers. But I also love to be able to sell a product that's a one and done. Easy to clean, no sealer required. And that's what the premix are giving us. So what does that come out with? We got a mid-range cost. So it's going to be more expensive than the 118.7s. But it's going to be less expensive product-wise than the epoxy. So we're right in that middle for cost, but we're going to have best customer satisfaction. The reason why is that one of the things is not only is the product less expensive than the epoxy, but the labor is going to stay the same, around the same cost as the cement grout application. So the labor costs will not need to go up, and we'll explain that in 1 second when we talk about different generations of this product. So how to determine performance level of products within an assembly. If you look to the right, you will see the Robinson floor test. It starts with a soft rubber wheel at 100 pounds per wheel. And this is for thin set, this is for grout. It continues increasing the weight and hardening the wheels, ultimately finishing with the steel wheels and 300 pounds per wheel. It just keeps spinning. It goes through each rotation and then they add more. And then they evaluate what is the damage, what is the abrasion, what is the shearing strength. That also goes for membranes, crack iso membranes, uncoupling membranes. What's going to happen after we're done with the 14 cycles, it's going to give you service requirements to meet ANSI A1 137.1. Is it going to be extra heavy, moderate, light, or residential, so that we can make sure that everybody understands when they're doing an installation and going through that TCNA manual, what the products are designated for. So when we look at all the grouts and all the different types of applications, we start looking at, okay, what grouts fit where? And that's kind of what's important to, well, to all of us, but I know when I'm working with the architects out there doing specification, where are we putting it and what can actually work in those? So when we look at the bottom up, we're going to go with residential. All of three of the grouts, because I leave the standard grout, the 118.6, and most of you architects, if you've talked to me before and we talk about grout, I kind of leave the 118.6s alone. They just come up with too many issues, and that's really just a cost thing. that people want to continue to use them for. I really want to work it up to at least a 118.7. So when we talk for this program or this slide right here, you'll look at just the 3 different types of grouts. So I have high performance 118.7, premix grout, epoxy, good. Light commercial, all 3 of the grouts are good. When you get to moderate, all 3 grouts are good. You get to submerged, so we're talking fountains, we're talking swimming pools. Okay, that is where it changes. We are going to be able to still stay with a 118.7, and we're going to be able to stay with a 118.3 for epoxy, but we are not going to be able to use a premixed A118.9 when it's submerged. Again, swimming pools, water features, not intermittent moisture, continuous submersion. So that's another good thing. Call me, email me. Let's talk about where you're putting it. Heavy duty. All 3 of them can work in heavy duty. So you got shopping malls, airports, train stations, auto showrooms, commercial kitchens, and service areas. Now the commercial kitchens is kind of a question. That when you move up to extra heavy, we drop high performance cement based grouts and premix. Then we move to a A118.3 IG, which is designated as an industrial grout. That's if we're doing food plants, dairies, breweries, and commercial kitchens. So that's if you're doing commercial kitchens, please reach out to one of us. Please reach out and talk to us about the commercial kitchens, because what we're going to tell you is if you have high chemicals that are going to be used there to clean, we don't want to just use a 118.3 epoxy. Some of those will break down. I remember going on about 3 or 4 corner bakery restaurants. And every one I walked into, I could take my key and peel the epoxy grout out. It was rubbery. And because they were using enzymatic cleaners where they would just flood the floor and the cleaners just sat there cleaning all the enzymes. But it also, again, wears out the epoxy grout. So we have come out with industrial grade grouts to be able to use in that. So you guys out there, the architects, specifiers, you know, I always say you guys need to know so much. You need to know everything on the project. I only need to know about the tile installation and now some of the other types of flooring like luxury vinyl planks and stuff like that. That's all I'm an expert in. Contact me. Let me try to help you because you have a lot on your plate. So what we got from the first generation, okay? The owners and the architects, specifiers, designers, they selected the premix grout because of performance. Never needing to seal, color consistency. And that's what I would sell them on when I went into your office and talked to you about it. But when it came to the installation on the first generation, we got a pushback because it required a different grouting process. So back when we came out with the first generation, when you did the installation, the grout was supposed to be where you could do small areas, 25 to 30 square feet at a time. You could let it sit for 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the job site conditions. We wanted to try to get it to mimic a cement-based grout application, so it wasn't any harder on the contractor and they didn't have to learn anything new. The problem is that once that first generation came out, we found that you could not extend that grout area to a larger area like that. So it really narrowed down to about a 2 to 10 square foot area, about an arm's length, or something you could comfortably grout within 2 to 3 minutes. After that, you know, these premix, they're air dry compounds. So they come in a bucket. So once that lid comes off the bucket, you can immediately start to grout. That's why there's no mixing involved. But once that air hits it, it starts locking on. And once you skim grout over tile, which you've all seen, it's real thin, air hits it, starts locking it in quickly, especially if you're doing an exterior. So what we found out from the contractors is that they like the product, but the cleaning it was so difficult to be able to get it off there quick enough. And then they ended up starting to do it like an epoxy job. So the contractors would do it with a helper, and one person would spread the grout, one person would clean the grout. So that worked, but labor costs went up. So now all of a sudden you're getting back up into that epoxy application. And I actually had some contractors that would rather have used the epoxy than the premix, which wasn't working for us. So we wanted a grout where we didn't have to ask the contractor to change. Okay, we wanted to create innovations that fall into current practices. We wanted to keep and improve on the key performances, so the color consistency, the non-sealing, the abrasion resistance. But we wanted to make sure that the contractor was easier to do the grout. So we wanted the material to change. We didn't want the contractor to have to change. So we went back and we made a second generation grout. Okay, with the second generation premix, we were able to find out you could grout small areas, medium areas, or large areas. And the installer did not have to change. So now anybody that knows how to do a cement-based grout installation can do a premix grout installation, and it's going to work the same way with coming back and cleaning the grout off at a reasonable amount of time. It's able to stay on the grout tile, longer than the first generation. So what that came out with, we go to the owners, the architect, specifier designers, and they are very happy to specify a second generation premix grout. But now the contractors enjoy installing it as well, because they don't have to change anything and they don't have to fear putting it in and having it lock on to that tile and having issues getting it off and then have callbacks. So we feel that with the second generation, we are hitting it out of the park. Now we're all on the same page. The final pieces of the planning puzzle is in the agreement of specified materials and methods from the tile manufacturer and the manufacturer and the installing contractor. Warranties. So all companies are required to provide a standardized warranties, but most will provide enhanced programs with project-specific warranties. So again, another reason to reach out to your manufacturer reps, because a lot of the manufacturers out there will offer system warranties. So instead of going grout from one manufacturer, thin set from another, waterproofing from another, all of us out there in the manufacturing world would love to go to single source. That way we have our name on everything on there. So if anything within that installation has an issue, one person goes out to it, takes a look, tests material, and we can get the answers for you. So that concludes the American Institute Continuing Education Program under the AIA. My phone number is on there, 707-318-6325. There's my email, james.tuttle@cbpmail.net. Make sure it's .net. I do get people that get mad at me why I haven't answered them, and they put .com. So make sure you get that correct to be able to get reach out to me. And so now if we're done with the AIA portion, I'd like to actually talk about the second generation that I've been telling you about and wonder about what product is ours. Ours is Prism SCG for single component grout. Now this product was released almost 2 years ago. But it was now it's been out for about 8 years getting tested. We would take it down to Arizona where the heat was. We get it into Florida where the high humidity is. We take it up to Seattle where there's high moisture content in the air and get it into all these different areas before we ever release it. It's gone through a cycle of about 6 years with our contractors so they could tell us, let the pros tell us what they like about it and what they don't like, and then we change it from there. So before it ever gets released, I know I love to say that it's new, but it's only new out in the market. It has been around for a long time. Our Prism SCG does come in all 40 of our grouts. Anybody here that needs a fresh grout kit or a color fan deck, which I don't have a picture of it on there, but some of you that know me, I drop off the fan decks. They're stickers. All of the colors, they come out where they're stickers and you can put them on your storyboards or on your tile. You don't lose the little plastic samples, but I'll be happy to ship both to you. Just reach out to me. I got plenty of them sitting in my garage ready to go. Okay, so you get unsurpassed stain resistant with Prism SCG, perfect color consistency. You get that high performance in wet areas, and it's ready to use right out of the bucket. No mixing required. Some of the benefits for it, which I like, you can re-grout or you can cap the grout over existing grout. So let me tell you what that means. When you have a cement-based grout, okay, and there's an issue with it, there's a divot in it, you got to dig it out about half of the depth of the tile so that it can grout on top of itself. But with these premix grouts, especially ours, you can just cap it right over. So if anybody puts a divot in that grout while they're installing it, real easy. They just cap it right off. so that way they can repair any kind of damage easily when they're in the field. The compressive strength, very high, 4,000 psi. So what do we get from it? 4 stars for, well, we look for color performance. Epoxy grout's going to be one of your top ones. Single component has a better stain resistance also than epoxy. So it is a 5-star system. The Prism SCG 2nd generation as well. When you get down to the 118.7s, you get a 4-star because remember, it's still a cement base. And then you're going to get a 3-star or 2-star with 118.6s out there because of the Portland cement issues and the possibility for efflorescence and shading. High chemical resistance. So it can go to 4-star, but it's not going to hit that 5-star if we get into high chemicals, kitchens, breweries. Remember, we need to move to epoxies or the industrial grade epoxies, depending on, and talk to your manufacturer rep for that. But look at that for the stain resistance. Better stain resistance than epoxy. So we can get away from thinking that epoxy is the end-all be-all. We can actually save money on the project. Ease of use. Now the 2nd generation, 5 stars. So glad to have the 5 stars because I love this product. Being the rep out there, having a grout that's almost bulletproof is nice to be able to represent. So that concludes the actual whole program. I hope I didn't talk too fast for everybody. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to go over anything with you.
You can see why Custom is installed on more commercial and residential projects than any other brand. Count on Custom, your partner in flooring preparation and tile and stone installation systems. To learn more, visit CustomBuildingProducts.com.